My hat's strapped on. I'm ready.
All right, let's do this. All right. So, as I said, it's an asymmetric card game in which we have the villagers out there. There are three different groupings of villagers, if you will. One of which is the true witch, i.e. is me, for all intents and purposes. There is a deck of 9 suspect cards, one of which I'm going to randomly draw, and that is going to be the witch. And then it becomes, if you've played a game like Star Wars Rebellion, in where the
Empire needs to find the rebel base.
Right, they're drawing to find out where they're not. This is drawing who they're not, as it were. All right. So, what is it y'all are looking at out here? Well, we have the village board with the villagers. There are 9 villagers broken down into 3 different colors. We have the blue, the green, and the red. We'll zoom in on those after the teach, and you guys will see the pretty great and really sketchy artwork. Sketchy is a compliment.
No, it's good. It's unsettling, genuinely.
Some of these folks need some sun. Clearly,
some of these folks need
more than just sun.
Justice.
Yeah, there's that. And then, as I mentioned, there is the suspect deck as well. And then we have our player tableaus. We have the bad guys, i.e. the hunter, on that side, which is the red player, has all the red pieces. He has a influence disc, which goes from 0 to 20. He has 3 tokens, and then he has a deck of 50 cards, which have 4 different types of cards. We'll go into that in a little bit. It also has a action list. It kind of doubles as a player aid as well, but it's where the player pieces may end up going as well. Then in between our boards, there is the enchantment board, which, or as I like to call it, the nuisance board for Kyle.
Yes.
So those, as I play enchantments, if I play enchantments, they will go out there from left to right. Then over on my board, I have a asymmetric but identical, if that makes sense, to where I have a board, I have player aid / as well as actions I can take. I have an influence disc. I have 50 different cards. And I have 3 action tokens. The action tokens, or the witch tokens, action pawns, if you will, I have 2 different types. I have regular ones, then I have a familiar one. A familiar, because I'm a witch, be it a crow, a cat, or whatever. So a special action token as well.
Familiar? Thought I recognized it.
Yeah, totally. I see what you did.
Now you're not the only one who can do magic.
So, the goal of the game is to win the game. How do we win the game? If you're the good guys, i.e. the witch, one of 2 ways. Either perform the ritual, which obviously I will talk about here in a little bit. So basically, do the thing, and the village goes away, and nature recovers Roanoke.
Good for some.
Right. So, there's that. Or the hunter kills, it's eliminate, but hunter kills 3 innocent villagers. The hunter wins if they eliminate the true witch. So if they kill whichever card it is that I draw, because I've done a poor job of look over here, not over there, or if they have gathered all 8 of the suspect cards, meaning they have actually drawn the entire deck, because I will have already gotten 1, and there's 8 left. So by power of deduction,
I've exonerated all possibilities. What remains must be the truth, or whatever Robert Downey Jr. said as Sherlock Holmes.
There we go.
Yeah.
Now, the game takes place... Oh, you know what? Before we get started, actually, I probably ought to point out that we're actually using the wooden token set. So the wooden tokens that are out here, normally the game comes with this punch board. It's fine. It's perfectly cromulent. But we're playing with the add-on, which is the wooden tokens. They are those, they are these, they are those, and then there are some bags and then skull tokens, which are going to be for some of the expansion stuff, and bags to hold the pieces. So just FYI, full disclosure, that's what we're doing. All right. Now, how do you play the game? Well, the beginning of the game, one player starts, the witch always starts. They take their upkeep phase, then they do their entire action phase, and then it becomes the hunter. rinse and repeat until one of the end conditions is met. There is no rounds. It's just straight up start here, alternate back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Takes their entire turn, rinse and repeat. All right. So we're going to skip the upkeep phase for right now. And we'll just go straight into the action phase. The action phase says, place an action pawn from your supply on a villager or board, then carry out the effect of the placement. Do this as many times as you have available action pawns. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. But at the very beginning of the game, the witch only can place their 2 regular action pawns. So in other words, this familiar one is unavailable the very first turn of the game. And in addition to that, they must go visit villager. So if whatever villager I choose to go visit, let's say I choose to go visit there. On the first turn and the first turn only, the witch also is limited to within that color bracket of villagers. So in other words, I can go to those two, or those two, if I choose to go to green.
Yep.
I must go out onto one of the 3 boards. By the way, these do come apart, so it's a small footprint. In that regard, you can set them up however you want, but I digress. First turn of the game, must go out, visit villagers, put out it within the same color, done. Then after that, the hunter has no restrictions. They're going to use their 3 action pawns. They can go anywhere out there or over onto their player board to be able to take other actions as well. Hopefully all that makes sense. So there are 3 things that a player can do on their turn, and a player, I mean on the witch's turn. They can do one of 3 things. The majority of the time, they are going to visit a villager. The other things that they can do on their turn is basic actions, which are usually lesser actions than visiting the villager, but literally placing the marker onto their player board and taking one of those 3 actions. Or the third thing is readying a villager. So what that means, on your turn, you're going to be placing out your tokens, your action pawns out there, but they will stay during your opponent's turn. And so a villager is available only when it doesn't have an action pawn on it. When it has an action pawn, nobody can take that action. It is worker placement-esque in that if there is one on there, there cannot ever be 2. They've already been visited by an inquisitor or a friendly person. So
A friendly inquisitor.
all right, yeah, if you will. All right, so that said, let's go through what the 3 actions are. The very first one, visit a villager. Has a lot of steps, but it's actually really, really simple. The first thing is carry out a card effect if there is an investigation. So if there were something like this, we would do whatever is on there. If there's a card on my side, it's because the hunter put it there. And okay, do that. Okay, easy enough. Usually that will not be the case. Then convert clues, secrets into favors. Secrets into favors, which it's on a 3-to-1. So if there are 3 secrets out there, we turn them into 1 favor and those go away. If there are 6, you do it multiple times. It is to a maximum of 2. So if there are 9, convert it 2 times, leaving everything else out there.
Yep.
We'll go into detail with that here in a minute. Then distribute clues to villagers. Okay, so where I go and visit, and let's go ahead and say I go ahead and hang out over here with Bo. All right, so Bo Johnson, you do whatever is shown on the left-hand side of the card. It says you're going to place some number of either secrets or clues, depending on what they are. So secrets for the good guys, the witches, clues for the hunters. It's effectively the same thing as far as our various sides. So it says place 1 secret on a green character. Okay, so these being the green ones, it's as simple as placing 1 there, or 1 there. Now, I always have an optional place that I can place it, which is on a brew, but I'll talk about that more in a minute. All right, so that is that action. That is distribute secrets 2 villagers, or to a brew. A brew has that symbol, so pretty straightforward on that. The next thing is use the villager skill twice if there are 2 or more favors on it. So let's go ahead and mosey on back. So the villager skill is do whatever the text is on there. This says gain 2 influence. Okay. It is play a card, draw 2 cards. Very simple stuff, very basic things. So if they have 2 or more favors, and again, favors being those tokens, the little hand symbol, then they can do it twice. After that, then do what we jokingly call a bird action or familiar action if I use the familiar. So if I use that token, if I have any of the familiar cards out here and I went and visited them with that, then I get to trigger one of those cards. That's it. That's visiting a villager. Pretty simple. The second at any time on my turn, if there is a brew ready to be consumed, I can do it as a free action. So any of these brews, they're just super powerful actions that I can take. And finally, the last 2 actions that I can take on my turn are either gain 2 influence, draw a card, or play a card. Okay, so again, that takes one of my action pawns, do one of those. Now, unlike villagers out here, which are limited to a single action pawn, these can have multiple action pawns on them for a given action.
Yep.
Either that or the ready a villager. Ready a villager says it costs a a secret from that villager, and you can remove an enemy's action pawn. So if we take a look over here at the green section, so let's say I would like to go visit Hunter Adams, but unfortunately it has a hunter on it, an action pawn. As long as I have at least 1 secret on it, I can ready a villager. So as my action, come over here, say, hey, I'm going to remove that, and that goes back to Kyle's supply. And now as my third action, if I had one available, now I can go and do that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, those are all the actions that I can take on my turn. But now I think would be a good time to talk about the meat of the game, which is the actual cards. So again, I have 4 different cards, 4 different types of cards in my deck. So we'll look at these real quick. Look at the icon in the top left corner. It tells you what kind of cards they are. And again, there is a handy dandy little player aid for this. So it is a brew, a familiar skill, a enchantment, or a charm. Okay, we'll talk about the empowerment here in a minute. So the iconography on these cards is all identical in that there's an icon in top left, shows what type of card it is. It shows the amount of influence you are required to spend to be able to play that card. So influence is tracked on our handy dandy little discs. Again, they go from 0 to 20.
You can't exceed that. You just mark it and remember.
Sure, but good luck with that.
Good luck with that.
Just 0 to 20. And so, hey, 2, as long as I have to. If I don't have to, can't do it. Then, if it's a brew, it's going to have some number of secrets listed here. In this case, that is 4. What that means is this must have 4 secrets placed on it after it's played to be able to consume it. Then after that, the consuming, which again is a free action on the witch's turn, add 1 secret to all villagers. Okay, cool. It's a one-time use. So that would get played. Again, it would cost me 2 influence there. And then whenever I'm placing influence by placing with those tokens out there, like instead of placing 2 green, I could place 1 green out there, and I could place, say, 1 there and 1 there. Okay, easy enough. Or I could place both there if I want. Once I reach 4, I can trigger it at any time on my turn. Easy enough. The second action that I can take on my turn is a familiar skill, or play a familiar.
Yeah.
So this has a little familiar icon. It has some number of influence. Then when you play it, you have room for 3 at any point. If you have too many, you just discard them into your discard pile. Discard piles are face up. Place it out there. Okay, once it's out there, then it becomes a matter of whenever I use that token on a villager, then I get to do whatever the base action is. So move one investigation from the visited villager to another visitor. So if there is,
I got it.
there you go. If there's a there, I can be like, you know what? When I go and do that, this is now going to go there. Okay, something like that. However, it also has an empower icon. The empower icon says spend some number of something. So in this case, spend 2 influence and then return an investigator to the hunter's hand instead of moving it around. So awesome. That's kind of nice.
Seems bad.
And these are not one-time use. They're my familiars. They hang out as long as I want them to.
If you have multiple of the cards out, when you play your familiar, you choose
one. Why? Because I have one familiar.
Yep.
All right. So that is the familiars. Now we have a couple of other fun cards here as well. We'll start with this one, which is a charm. It's an instant. It's a one-shot. So that icon is a charm. Spend that amount of influence, and then do whatever it says. This is remove 1 location. We haven't talked about the hunter side yet, but hey, location, I say that one. That one goes away, it goes into his discard, done.
Boom.
And this is a one-shot, goes into my discard, done. And then there are enchantments. Enchantments are a pain in the butt for the hunter. They cost that amount of influence. They only cost that to be removed from the hunter. However, to be able to do this, the hunter must take an action to remove it in addition. So it's not a high influence cost, it's an action cost. And that stinks for him. Anyway, and in the meantime, as long as this remains, when I play it, it goes to the leftmost spot. This one costs 1 extra influence. This costs 2 extra influence. Easy enough on that. When I play it, this now is just in play until it goes away. If it doesn't go away, it's in play forever. Whatever that says. The winch decides the action for the hunter's first action pawn. Nice. It must be visiting the villager. Fantastic. Okay. All right. So those are all the types of cards on my turn. So again, I do my upkeep, which I will talk about here in a moment. I do my upkeep, then I place my 3 action pawns, doing 1 at a time. If I visit a villager, I follow that. If I do this, I do that. If I ready a villager, I place my action pawn there. Playing cards, drawing cards, so on and so forth, etc. Now let's go ahead and talk about the upkeep phase, then we'll move over to Kyle's side. So the upkeep phase, return all action pawns. Okay, easy enough. That comes home, that comes home, that comes home. Then, you must perform obligatory and you may perform voluntary upkeep effects in any order. If they come up, we'll talk about them. However, the hunter has to pay upkeep costs for their allies, which we'll talk about here in a minute. Then, and only then, is hand size checked, limited to 7. If you have more than 7, discard your choice. And then rinse and repeat, and it becomes the hunter's turn. So the hunter does their upkeep phase, exact same at the beginning of their turn, and then we go through theirs. So theirs, very similar. Go ahead.
So I also have the ability to visit a villager, but you see mine has a fewer steps. I have no special actions. So first, I would carry out the effect of an investigation card. I might play it on my side if it's beneficial to me, or on Edward's side if it's detrimental to the witch. I get to gain 1 evidence, which are
The shoes.
the little shoes.
Right.
If the villager I'm visiting has 3 or more clues on them. Now, it's different than the witch does, where the witch actually cashes in 3 secrets to get a favor. Mine just stay, and I'll take the shoe into my possession. I have that. I followed the footprints, and I found the shoe that made them.
And the footprints are permanent.
They are
Boom.
permanent.
Well,
They can be.
they can be removed, but they're not cashed in.
Yeah,
like my side is.
I do not remove
Right.
these to claim
There
my
you go.
evidence. Then, similar to the witch, I would distribute, in this case, unlike secrets, I would distribute my clues among the associated villagers mentioned, and then, of course, perform the skill of the villager I visit.
I.e. do the card.
Do the
Right.
card.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, pretty similar, but a little more straightforward for me. I have no magic. I don't make any secret spells out of it. My second place out ability is I can activate a ready location. The top half of my board, where the witch has their brews, I have locations, which are cards in my deck that I can play, and we'll talk about them in a little more detail. But you'll note they have this little red circle here that gives me an action space. The little lightning bolt shows that this is an action space I can go. So if this is ready, aka it does not have an action pawn on it, I can go there and do the effect listed. Not bad.
Easy enough.
The third of my out in the play area effects is to raid a villager. I place one of my action pawns on a ready villager, so no action pawns on it, and pay 3 clues from it. And if I do, I can remove 1 favor or all clues from that villager.
So, or secrets.
Oh, sorry, secrets.
They're effectively the same thing. They have
Yeah.
different terms, but either one of those or all of those.
Yes. So, needs to have 3, needs to be ready. I go there. In this case, I would pay them, so they would come off, and then I would get rid of the witch's influence.
Right.
Okay. Then we go into my onboard actions. So the witch only had 2, kind of the generic actions of readying a villager and doing the mishmash. I have quite a few more tools to deal with the witch. So the first one, again, these all involve, you'll note the lightning bolt in the background, placing the action pawn directly on the board, and any number of action pawns can go on each. First one is lift enchantment. I can place my action pawn on that spot. If there was an enchantment here, I would pay the listed cost. This bonus is only for playing, not for dispelling.
Yep.
Everything remains slides down. They're generally cheaper than they are to play, but it costs me 1/3 of my turn to go and get rid of it.
And he can do any of the 3 that he chooses. If there are 3 out there, they don't have to be left or right.
Yep, I could choose the furthest one and then I'll slide down. The next action down you've already seen, which is the gain 2 influence or draw a card or play a card. Generally better to do out on a villager. They have potentially more powerful versions. Up next, I'll really quickly say, you'll note Ready a Villager is also there. Same as the Witch, except it costs me a clue as opposed to a secret.
Right.
Same thing,
Yep.
just my token. All right, and then we have my two game winners.
Yes.
The first one is Exonerate a Villager. To exonerate a villager, I need to have followed the trail and collected a strangely odd number of shoes. If I have 3 evidence tokens, I can cash them in, put one of my action pawns here, and I draw the top card of the remaining villagers, and now, in secret, I know that that villager is not the true witch. Exactly.
Right.
Because that card's already over there.
Yep.
If I can do that action 8 times before the witch has ritualed out, I will win, because I've exonerated everybody else, and I know that it was the Widow Atkins. My other game winner action, down here at the bottom, is the other E word, is Eliminate a Villager. This one's a little trickier to get off. I need to have 3 clues on the villager that I'm looking to eliminate, and 1 clue, at least 1 clue on every other villager.
Yep.
So I'm not going to spend the time to put them out there, but you need to have 3 on that person, 1 on everybody else, and they need to be ready. So if you imagine I had a clue on everybody, in this instance, I could eliminate Hunter Adams. Which at point Edward would say is...
Hold on, I look at who the witch is. Nope, it's not a Hunter Adams.
So
sad. You killed an innocent.
If I get it right, I win.
Yeah, immediately.
But if I get it wrong, this villager goes face down, and every clue, not just on that person, but every clue in the village comes off the board. I've lost all the goodwill of the village. They don't want to help me right now. I'm going to have to rebuild that network. If I do that 3 times incorrectly,
game over.
I lose. So I need to try to read into the witch's actions. So,
all right. So we talked about how you win in that regard. Now we'll talk about your actions here in a minute. Performing the ritual for me is placing an action pawn on a ready villager who is the true witch and has at least 3 favors on them. If I do that, I win the game immediately.
So 1, 2, and 3. And needs to be ready, which means I cannot be there, or you could not have interacted with them earlier in the turn.
And there, oh, hey, I reveal. Okay, I win.
You win.
That's it. All right. So now, briefly, let's go ahead and talk about the Hunter's cards. So first off, they have allies. Allies are the equivalent of their familiars, except they have little rule breakers out here. They have some number of upkeep, 0 to a bigger number.
I think I've seen 0 and 1.
Right. And then, hey, do the rule breaker whenever it applies. The second one is locations. If you go there, do that. Just like what Kyle already talked about. Then there are events. Those are instants, one-shots. Do whatever it says. And finally, there are investigations. These get attached to villagers. He plays it either to my side or his side, and it affects us whenever we go and visit that villager. So again, rinse and repeat until one of the endgame conditions. Either I perform the ritual, he has gotten all 8 suspect cards and he knows who the witch is, or he kills 3 innocents.
Or I kill the witch.
Or you kill the witch, which really isn't going to happen.
Which witch?
Which witch? All right, that's it. Hey, thank you for subscribing. Oh, you're not a subscriber yet. Oh, wait. Hey, thank you for subscribing. Go check out other videos. I appreciate it, y'all.